This episode is brought to you by Mike Scott, the voice of history. When selecting your next audiobook, choose from some of the great titles narrated by audiobook narrator Mike Scott, like Bloody Autumn, the Shenandoah Valley Campaign of 1864. And if you're an author or publisher interested in having your written works produced as audiobooks, give Mike a call. No, don't give him a call. That's not what it says there, Veronica. Give Mike Scott a try at MikeScottVoice.com. Mike Scott, the voice of history.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ask a Gettysburg Guide number 30. I'm Matt. Over there is Eric, the producer. Hey, Eric.
Howdy, howdy.
How are you today?
Oh, making it through. It's a little chilly out.
A little chilly out, but we're nice and warm in here thanks to the plethora of propane sent to us by our patrons. They don't want us to freeze, Eric. They care about our well-being.
It's very nice of them. Yeah. I don't like being cold when we do these.
You guys got propane patrons?
We
Is this like Hank Hill? What do we got going on here?
I know. Every time I hear the word propane, I think of him. But yeah, no, we have a wish list on Amazon, and people send us propane.
Nice.
Because, it keeps us warm. Because this place does not have a proper heater. Or any kind of environmental control, really.
No.
But, so we thank everybody for that. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you have your notifications turned on. And also, if you use the Apple Podcast app, please leave a 5-star review. Reviews, liking, sharing, and subscribing are the best ways to help our audience grow. What is that noise out there? Oh,
that's the facilities guy.
Oh.
Rolling around on his little gator.
What's he doing, Veronica? Is he like right out the window there? It's like...
No, they're driving past, and it's really loud.
Driving past? He's driving past it like a half a mile an hour.
Yep.
Tell him we're doing a show. No, I'm just kidding.
Don't tell him that.
What, is he coming over here? This is... Oh, look at this. Oh, okay. Anyway, this is the excitement of being down in a parking lot in a shed. Anyway, so reviews, liking, sharing, and subscribing are the best ways to help our audience grow. Okay, today we're talking about East Cavalry Field, where a fella named George Armstrong Custer, a newly minted brigadier general, gained fame for himself. Joining us today is a man who needs no introduction. But since you can't see him, I'll introduce him anyway. He's a licensed battlefield guide, a New Yorker, correct?
Correct. Western New York.
Western New York. Is that Rochester?
Buffalo.
Buffalo, okay.
I didn't want to say that too proudly, but...
That area.
Nice.
Where? Lockport?
Yep.
I've been there. I've been to Lockport. That's
I've been
amazing.
to Lockport, too.
Yeah. That's pretty... I like that area up there. It's beautiful.
North Tonawanda is...
What? Speak in the microphone there, Waylon. Come on.
Why?
What are you saying? North what?
North Tonawanda.
Is that what? I don't know. Yeah, I was just there for a wedding. I don't know what
So
that
we got
well.
the Jim and Waylon show from Buffalo tonight? Is that what we got going here?
New York rep.
Anyway, so he's a New Yorker. He's a licensed battlefield guide. I said that. One of the hosts of the Battle of Gettysburg podcast and acclaimed author of several books, all available at addressinggettysburg.com, by the way, including Sickles at Gettysburg, Gettysburg's Peach Orchard, co-authored with Britt Eisenberg, and Pickett's Charge at Gettysburg, co-authored with Wayne Motts. He is none other than the great Jim Hessler. Welcome, Jim.
All right, thank you. Thanks. Matt, Eric, Waylon, Veronica, thank you all for having me.
You're welcome.
I know we figured this is my third appearance.
Third time, yes.
And before we get into our stuff, I want to thank you guys for having me for these crossover events.
Absolutely.
That we do podcast to podcast.
Absolutely.
Kind of like Batman meeting Superman kind of stuff. It's great. So,
Yes.
So
Yes.
thanks.
Oh, no, absolutely. We love having you on.
It's a cold day out there, so I want to give a special thanks to your propane patron because it's cold out today.
Yeah, and you got that heater over there toasting your buns, right?
Nice.
It's right behind
This
you.
is nice.
Yeah. Let us know if it gets too hot. We'll turn it down for you because that thing can heat up. All right, so let's see. Let's talk about George Custer now. You're a big Custer fan. I'm a big Custer fan.
I know we share that, don't we?
Yes.
We do share that.
We do share that, and he's a fascinating guy. He was a young guy. He was 23 years old, and he becomes a brigadier general.
Yeah.
Give us the background, though. Like, what's his military service record before?
Yeah,
How does he get up to brigadier?
Sure. So, just to back up, though, for a minute, want to be careful saying that we're a fan of anybody, right?
Good
and,
point.
Custer has a image problem today with the American public. But I think when you look at famous people associated with Gettysburg. I always tell people on my tours, George Armstrong Custer is arguably the second most famous person associated with Gettysburg.
Yeah.
And I would say Lincoln is one. Mm-hmm. Custer is two. And yeah, I think Custer's more famous to the average person of this planet than even Robert E. Lee. So I think so fan might not be the right word, but going back to when I was a kid, I was interested in Custer, and I've spent better parts of my entire life studying him, reading up on him. Dare I say there hasn't been a day in my life where I didn't think of George Armstrong Custer at least once.
I can say the same thing about myself.
Look at that,
there's just something about the guy.
We share that connection. Yeah, there's something about the guy. And I think there was, as a kid, I was sort of fixated on what I thought was his cool Civil War uniform, the black velvet and the red scarf,
and the long hair,
and
the sailor's shirt,
the big hat, and all that stuff.
Yes.
When I was a kid, long hair and facial hair. I didn't, who knew Civil War facial hair was ever going to come back into style, right? So Custer, there was always something about him, and like a lot of Custer enthusiasts, I'll use that word.
That's a better word.
Like a lot of Custer enthusiasts, we often become fascinated with how he died and the mystery surrounding his death at the Battle of Little Bighorn. And what you often find is then we often go back in reverse to learn about his Civil War career. And, one historian has said that America basically forgot the George Armstrong Custer of the Civil War. And I think that's dead on.
Absolutely.
I think that's dead on. So to finally answer your question, he's born in New Rumley, Ohio. He's a raw, energetic, family-oriented kid, not a great student, as we all know. He is the last graduate in the second class at West Point in 1861. But I think when he joined the Army, military life and the adventure suited him.
Yeah.
He was a guy who, and he says this in some of his letters, he was a guy who aspired to whatever his definition of great was. He said he didn't really care if he became rich or, famous, but he had this idea of greatness. And, he comes onto the national stage right at the beginning of the Civil War when you could do daring deeds on a battlefield to become great.
Yeah.
His early Civil War is surprisingly undistinguished, I think, by kind of our standards,
Sure. I'm kind of boring.
Yeah.
For a guy like him.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Kind of surprisingly so. When we think of our various Gettysburg heroes, we want to hear about what they did at previous battles and things like that. And Custer was a staff officer, and that was really where he cut his teeth. Starting out as a lieutenant, but then eventually moving up to a captain, serving on George McClellan's staff. So he's a staff officer during some of the big Eastern battles like Antietam, and then eventually onto Alfred Pleasanton's staff. And it was really as a staff officer that he started to gain notice and attention from people above him. His energy, his enthusiasm. There's a great story where, one of the generals and their staff are kind of sitting at the edge of a river.
Yeah.
You know the story?
Yeah.
They're sitting at the edge of a river, and the general's kind of pondering, I wonder how deep that river is. And, Custer just dives into the river.
Goes right in,
Says, it's this deep, General. Stuff like that.
Yeah. So he's a staff officer, and you would think it would be boring, but he finds a way to make it interesting, and he can't help but be himself. Like, he's not a staff officer. Personality-wise, you know what I mean? But that's the position he's in.
Yeah.
But it's not where he's meant to be. He's not, what's the word?
Suited.
His disposition, suited.
Yeah,
he's not suited to be one.
You're right.
But he finds opportunities to do what he's suited to do. Because another one is him going up in the balloon.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Terrified, right? He's terrified.
Yeah. And he's like one of the first guys to volunteer to use balloons for reconnaissance work.
Yeah.
Then he tells a great story later. He is surprisingly self-deprecating. The media and today that we always portray him as kind of this raging egomaniac. But if you read his writings, he's surprisingly self-deprecating, and he tells that story. I went up into the balloon, but I was hugging the basket. Because I was
terrified.
I was terrified.
Well, you think about it, for that day and age to be off the ground and not like in a tree or on a platform that was constructed to not fall, that's got to be scary.
Well, and again, think about it. This is a farm kid from Ohio. His father was a blacksmith of humble beginnings, and now he's up in a balloon, for the Union Army kind of stuff. So I think we're digressing a little bit.
That's fine. People love this stuff.
This
Go
is
ahead.
just going to be me and you kind of doing our favorite Custer stories.
Let's just go on.
6 hours? We have 6 hours?
We've got as much time as you want. I have 9 hours left on this card, so you have plenty of time.
But anyways, where the hell were we?
No, so we're talking about him being a staff officer, but he's not really suited to be a staff officer.
Yeah, but what he does is, as I said, he comes to the attention of people who are above him. George McClellan loved Custer.
Mm-hmm.
Alfred Pleasanton loved Custer. Now, a lot of us hate Alfred Pleasanton,
right?
But
but what is it these guys loved about him?
And again, I think it's that energy. That enthusiasm, that initiative. There's this popular misconception today of George Custer as a guy who bucked authority and didn't like authority figures. And again, I think that's a myth. McClellan, Pleasanton, we'll see with Phil Sheridan and other guys. So people love his energy or that, but he's looking to do more. I mean, at one point he petitioned the governor of Michigan to try to take command of one of the regiments in the Wolverine, the Michigan Brigade. And he ultimately did not get that assignment. So he was looking for more. So when Alfred Pleasanton kind of comes into shape in the Army of the Potomac as the commander of the Cavalry Corps and starts to whip the Army's Cavalry Corps, reorganize it to his liking, Pleasanton is looking for young, energetic, enthusiastic guys, and as many of us know the story, June 28th, June 29th, they promote 3 youngsters, Elon Farnsworth, Wesley Merritt, and George Armstrong Custer, basically leapfrogging these guys from the rank of captain to brevet brigadier general. And that's how he ends up becoming a general, now commanding the whole Michigan Brigade. He had gotten turned down to command one of the regiments, and now he's got the whole Michigan Brigade.
So when does he actually take command of the brigade? And it was, Copeland was the commander before him?
Yeah, right. Copeland had it before him. But there's some uncertainty about some of the dates involved when he's either notified on June 28th or June 29th. But at some point, he's in Frederick, Maryland, and Pleasanton gives him the word that he's been promoted. So he rides to catch up with the brigade, who has already moved out. And really, his baptism in command of the brigade is June 30th at Hanover.
And it was very much like it was depicted in They Died with Their Boots On, right?
Exactly like that.
Where he was.
It's amazing how accurate that movie is.
They were making fun of him and calling him general, and he didn't know why, but they knew ahead of him, all of his buddies.
So there's a story, his bugler, I think a guy by the name of Joseph Fott. Like for a soldier, your last name is Fott. Like how cool is that, right? Kind of like having a name like Strong, kind of thing. But anyway,
or Musket.
Yeah. So there's or Army,
or
right?
Or Savage.
So we can just keep going with this, right? But anyways, so there's this story where Custer kind of comes back to the tent and says to his boys, you're not going to believe it. I just got promoted, and they're like, oh, the deuce you have. I love the way these guys talk. The deuce you have.
Like Stewie Griffin.
Yeah, exactly, right? The deuce you have. And he kind of shows them the papers, and he's like, no, seriously, you got to start calling me general. So they got to find a general uniform for this guy because, the Army's on the move. It's not like you have a tailor kind of sitting back there, with general's wardrobe just waiting to put it on. So they kind of fashion this getup. And they had captured a blue sailor's shirt from some Confederate gunboat. Well, that would look cool, so let's put that on. And they sew some big stars on the collar. And hey, we just got a black velvet jacket laying around. Before we put that on, let's sew some gold braids on it. So they do that. Hey, so wait, can I borrow that red necktie? So they kind of put that on. But to your point about how the boys react to it, they basically help him fashion this sort of quintessential Custer look that he now is going to style and profile to basically, when I get out there now and lead my new brigade, they're going to know who's in charge.
Yeah.
I'm the dude who looks like he's crazy.
So I see. I had forgotten that his buddies helped him piece that together.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Like they're on the move, so they can't. It's not like they're in winter quarters somewhere, and he could go to the local town and get a tailor and think it through.
You think about it. You see that with other guys here at Gettysburg too. They always portray in the movies and that they portray Alexander Webb as having a general's uniform on. He didn't have time to get one either. So Custer's not unique, but Custer's got the fashion sense to put it all together.
Sure. And later on, isn't there a confusion as he's charging into the Confederates? He's so far ahead of his own men that they think that they're it's Union cavalry chasing one of their own because he's dressed like such a circus clown.
Well, there's definitely some confusion there. You use the phrase circus clown. At Hanover, James Harvey Kidd, who's one of the officers in the Michigan Brigade, leaves kind of this classic account where he says, we're at Hanover and we hear a voice behind us that we don't recognize, and he's telling us to dismount and get in skirmish lines and all of that. And Kidd wrote that this voice was clear and resolute and, giving commands like an officer should, but we didn't recognize the voice. So Kidd turns around and is like, who the hell is that talking? And they see what Kidd describes as a circus rider gone mad. It's the guy with the long hair and this crazy outfit on.
Yeah.
So the guys don't recognize them. It takes a while to kind of figure out, okay, this kid is in charge. But one of the things you got to remember with Custer, too, even though he's a kid and this uniform helps make him stand out on a battlefield, he was also a West Pointer. He's regular Army. And so he was a fairly strict disciplinarian. And I think that's something that's going to really accelerate kind of to his detriment later in his career. But those are all the ways he kind of reins the guys in and gets them under his command.
Let's get into that for a second, though, because when he takes command, when he actually reaches the brigade, I think it was the 29th, right? You said?
Well, the 30th at Hanover when they kind of get into.
So that's when he's first. Okay, so now so he's new to command, and then they get into this scrape at Hanover. What is the condition that he finds the brigade in? Because you say he's a disciplinarian. I think I remember reading that his, the men sloppily saluted and things like that. And was there a resentment of him being so young and coming in and taking over? He's not from the brigade. He's recently from staff. How do the men view him when he first arrives?
Well, that's an interesting question. And I think part of the problem he's going to initially face is not only the age, but also the fact that he's not from Michigan. So, he's born in Ohio, as I think we said at the outset. He had become connected to Monroe, Michigan through his half-sister who lived there, and then eventually Custer spent some time going to school in Michigan,
right,
or that sort of thing. But, if you're a bunch of Michigan guys and this guy from Ohio comes in to command you, there's going to be some obvious resentment because of that. So, he's got to win them over, but I think the thing that works in his favor is this fact that they basically go right into combat. So, we've talked about the 30th at Hanover, July 2nd at Hunterstown, and then, of course, July 3rd here at East Cavalry Field. I think the fact that they go right into combat, and as we'll see, he's not afraid to stick his neck out there on the field and kind of take this, come on, boys, I'm right there with you leadership approach that I think is really going to quickly win the guys over to his favor. If this had happened in winter quarters, and we're kind of sitting around for 90 days before we do anything physical, it might have been a different story. But I think the Gettysburg campaign, in more ways than one, quickly helps him become a good leader. And the guys warm up to him pretty quickly.
Yeah, it was a crucible.
Right. So, again, you're right. The movies, we talked about they died with their boots on. The movies sort of always portray, all these drunks rolling around on the barroom floor, and Custer's got to come in and whip them into shape.
Yeah.
At least in the case of the Michigan Brigade, fortunately, that didn't happen.
Yeah. All right. So how does he do at Hanover? What is the Battle of Hanover like? And is it really a battle, or, What's the deal with Hanover? How does Custer do at that point?
Well, this is the first time you have not had me on with Tim Smith. So, if Tim were here, he would be scoffing.
Yeah, it's like,
are any of these cavalry fights really battles?
Right.
What, did one guy get killed? Kind of thing.
That's why we don't have Tim on today, because we don't.
Tim today?
We didn't want any cavalry bashing. This is a pro cavalry,
which is good. Pro cav podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, the Battle of Hanover. Custer acquits himself well at Hanover when he and a couple of his regiments, 'cause the Michigan Brigade's got 4 units. They've got the 1st Michigan, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th Michigan. But he specifically orders, I think it's the 6th, if I remember correctly, to basically dismount and fight as skirmishers. And I think at Hanover, he shows right off the bat a good grasp of the range of tactics that would be expected, of cavalrymen to perform on the battlefield, which again is interesting because, as we've said, he's been a staff officer. It's not like he got any practice commanding a regiment before he went up to brigade level. And I think at Hanover, Custer shows a good grasp of dismounted tactics, and again, kind of contra to this notion that we tend to have of him as this crazy wild man, leading charges, and getting all of his guys killed. So, we want to get John Krebs on to do Hanover if you haven't already. But Krebs is the expert on Hanover. But from my perspective, Custer performs well in what really is his baptism. We always kind of portray East Cavalry Field as Custer's first action in charge of the brigade, but he gets 2 auditions at Hanover and Hunterstown before we even get here.
And Hunterstown, kind of almost gets in a little trouble there.
He does.
For him personally.
He does. So what happens at Hunterstown is, Kilpatrick's division, of which Custer is attached to, is coming into Hunterstown basically from the south in the east, while Wade Hampton's brigade is kind of northwest of town, and they are moving out to head towards Gettysburg. So as Hampton is leaving Hunterstown for Gettysburg, Custer and Kilpatrick collide with Hampton's rear at Hunterstown.
Gotcha.
And so the fighting starts in the town, but eventually as you get down towards the Hunterstown Gettysburg Road, Hampton's guys stop. They take position on a ridgeline, and as you alluded to, Custer takes one of the companies and basically goes charging down the Hunterstown Gettysburg Road.
Right.
And unfortunately, the charge maybe doesn't work so well.
Right, and he's unhorsed at this point, right?
Yeah, so what happens is his charge. Now, first of all, in fairness, the road is very narrow. There's fences along the road. The Confederates have meanwhile deployed along a ridge line. They've got skirmishers on both sides of the road. So as Custer gets in front of a charge, he basically again says, "Come on, boys, I'll lead you this time," kind of thing. So he's already kind of working up the pithy catchphrases.
Right.
But he gets out there. They smash into Hampton's dismounted line, and unfortunately, newly promoted General Custer, his horse is shot out from under him. As the story goes, a Confederate is about to ride him down when Private Norval Churchill comes galloping up, shoots down the Confederate, scoops up his newly promoted General Custer onto the back of his horse, and Private Churchill, basically with Custer behind him, rides back to the Union lines.
Yeah.
So
close call.
Had Churchill not been there at the right time and place, you and I would not be talking today.
No,
right?
exactly.
Right?
He would be a footnote.
He'd be a footnote.
Yeah, nobody would care.
He'd be like some guy from Ohio that nobody cared about. Didn't even have time to have his picture taken in the new getup. Nobody would care.
Hunterstown is July 2nd, right?
Afternoon of the 2nd.
Now Custer's brigade is in Kilpatrick's division. Where are they ordered by the end of the 2nd? Where are they supposed to be? Yeah,
so by the end of the 2nd into the morning of July 3rd, Kilpatrick's division and basically kind of winds their way back around down towards the Baltimore Pike, down around what we call Two Taverns.
Okay.
So it's past the Outlet Mall. It's out towards Littlestown, but kind of just before Littlestown. So we're down on the Baltimore Pike on the morning of July 3rd when Kilpatrick gets orders to basically move his division opposite to the Union left. But as Kilpatrick and then his lead brigade under Elon Farnsworth are heading out towards the Union left, that's when a message comes in that gets onto Custer, basically saying, we want your brigade detached from Kilpatrick to go opposite to the Union right over to the Hanover Low Dutch Road intersection. And that's what's going to bring him to East Cavalry Field.
So I have a question about this.
Sure.
Okay, so what do you? I've got this book here, Custer Victorious.
It's the Civil War Bible for Custer.
And so it's Gregory J. It's on addressinggettysburg.com if you guys want, but Gregory Irwin is the author here. This is how he describes that, and I have a question about it. Let's see here. Okay, Pleasonton sent an aide to Kilpatrick at 8 a.m. with orders to move his division down to the left of Meade's line at the Round Tops. Detaching a staff officer to bring word to Custer, Kilpatrick hurried off immediately with his 1st Brigade under Elon Farnsworth. As soon as he got the command, Custer formed his 2nd Brigade on the road leading from 2 taverns. Before the column had moved more than a few hundred yards, it was intercepted by an aide from Brigadier General David McMurtry Gregg, the commander of the 2nd Cavalry Division. Different division commanders now is what I'm saying here. Gregg wanted Custer and his Michiganders to join him at once near the Rummel Farm, about 3 miles due north of the 2 taverns on the Hanover Road. So my question is, how can Gregg, is this an error that in the book, or how can Gregg get Custer detached from Kilpatrick without going to Pleasanton first?
No, you're right, and that's a good question on your part. And I think when you try to piece this whole story together, it becomes very confusing.
Yeah.
You have one guy belonging to Kilpatrick going over here and that sort of thing. So let me start with David M. Gregg.
Okay.
Because, if we do this whole thing and we don't give Gregg his due, people are going to be up in arms.
Sure, because a lot of Gregg fans out there.
They're going to be burning down the studio saying these guys, right, the David M. Gregg fan club in Reading, Pennsylvania. Huge,
yes.
bigly, yeah.
Bigly.
So let's before we go anywhere, let's give Gregg his due.
Sure.
And I'll kind of get to how that happens. David M. Gregg, commander of the 2nd Cavalry Division in the Army of the Potomac. Now, on the afternoon of July 2nd, and in the evening, while Custer and his boys were out near Hunterstown, Gregg had been out at the Hanover Low Dutch Road intersection and was involved with the skirmishing against Confederates on Brinkerhoff Ridge.
Right.
Okay. So
Confederate infantry.
Correct. Confederate infantry, Stonewall, the Walker's Brigade, and the 2nd Virginia and those guys.
Okay.
So that opportunity at Brinkerhoff Ridge gave General Gregg an appreciation of the ground east of Gettysburg.
Okay.
Gregg realized that the Low Dutch Road and another road, which you see on maps and you see in the accounts, but is gone today, I think primarily Lake Heritage kind of wiped it out. But Gregg realized that there were roads leading from the Hanover Road to the Baltimore Pike. And as any good Gettysburg enthusiast knows, what's on the Baltimore Pike?
Supply line.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo. So Gregg realizes this is important ground. Now, in Gregg's report, and I am going to get to the answer to your question.
I forgot the question.
I know. I'm sure most people did too.
No, just kidding.
In Gregg's report, Gregg says, I pulled back the night of the 2nd to the Baltimore Pike.
Okay.
And I was replaced by a brigade under Kilpatrick. So in Gregg's report, he says he moved out and he was replaced. Later on, Gregg elaborates the story. He talks more about it and he writes about it. And later on, Gregg says, well, I protested my orders to get pulled out, and I told the staff officer to go find somebody from Kilpatrick's division and go in and replace me. So, Matt, your question was, how could Gregg basically just pull a guy away from Kilpatrick? And the reality is he really can't. But what I think has happened is Gregg has been replaced, and headquarters has said, we're going to send a brigade up there under Kilpatrick's division to replace you. And I think later that kind of got embellished a little bit.
So the staff officer is not one of Gregg's staff officers.
He's one of
Pleasanton's who Gregg said, go find somebody.
Yeah, now there might be people, there might be scholars who would disagree with my interpretation of it. But again, what you got to do is you look at Gregg's report. which is very basic. I was replaced. And then you see how the story gets elaborated over time to, well, I told them to go find somebody and, all that stuff, which happens a lot.
Sure.
It happens a lot.
Okay. So then, so Custer goes over to Greg.
So Custer goes, so at this point in the morning, July 3rd, Greg has been moved to the Baltimore Pike. Greg has been moved somewhere to around where the bridge crosses Rock Creek, maybe as far out to where the outlet mall is.
Okay.
Greg has been ordered by Meade and Pleasanton, go to the Baltimore Pike, protect Slocum's right. And they tell Greg, this is a position that is so important, you can't give it up. This is a critical position, and you're going to go there. So Custer goes up the Baltimore Pike a bit.
So
then Custer gets the order. Custer goes from the Low Dutch Road to the Hanover Road. So now Custer's on the Hanover Road. Greg is back on the Baltimore Pike.
Okay.
Okay, you with me so far?
I'm with you. I don't get it, but I'm with you.
Well, so Greg's going to come back, though.
Okay, good.
So what's going to happen, though, is eventually.
What?
I'm sorry, I just lost something. There. Yeah, I know you said you want to do this in one take, but you can pause.
No. It's fine. Mess ups are good. People like mess ups.
No, I just started laughing thinking of something.
That's okay.
So, all right. So, where were we? Yeah. So, anyways,
Custer's out there. Greg's on the Baltimore Pike.
Yeah, Greg's on the Baltimore Pike. Now, Greg has got 2 brigades here at Gettysburg. On paper, Greg has 3 brigades, but one of them has been detached. So Greg has got 2 brigades with him at Gettysburg. He's got Colonel McIntosh's brigade, which only has about 900 guys.
Small.
Yep. And then he's got his cousin, J. Irvin Gregg's brigade, which is bigger, but they are primarily kind of over in the Wolf Hill, Highland Avenue area. Okay. So they're out there. So what happens is late morning, turns into early afternoon. Custer gets orders to go back to Kilpatrick. And headquarters basically says, okay, we'll put Greg back out there to replace Custer.
Oh.
So it's confusing because it's not running like a well-oiled machine.
So Greg wasn't sitting out there all morning, and then Custer goes out to him and then is ordered back, but then Greg says stay because there's Stewart.
That's going to come in
that's later. But so this is okay, so there's a jostling of units around.
Jostling of positions. J. Irvin Gregg is kind of over by Wolf's Hill. So Custer gets out there. He sends out some skirmishers, but then Kilpatrick is pissed that Custer has been detached. So somebody at headquarters says, okay, send Custer back to Kilpatrick and have Greg put his brigade, which will be McIntosh, put McIntosh's brigade back out there to replace Custer. As all of this jostling is going on back and forth, now it's approaching noon, and we can see a dust cloud on the horizon as Stewart is approaching the battlefield.
Okay.
Greg also gets a message from Oliver Howard on East Cemetery Hill, basically saying we can see a large body of cavalry, enemy cavalry, moving to the right. Imagine that. Oliver Howard is useful on July 3rd.
I read that today, and I was like, wow. Good for Howard. Like he did something.
Howard. Yeah. There's Howard fans out there.
Yeah.
So now Greg realizes, okay, the enemy is coming to this key position that I think should not be abandoned. And so as Greg comes back into the zone, Custer's got the orders to leave. That's when they have the famous exchange. And as the exchange allegedly goes, Custer says to Greg, General, you look like you're going to have a fight on your hands. And General Greg says to Custer, boy, I could really use you because, I only got 900 guys out here. And Custer says, well, if you order me to stay, I'll stay. And Greg says, I order you to stay. If it didn't happen that way, it should have.
It should have, right.
Because that's basically how it rolls.
But essentially, however the exchange went, Greg says, I'll take the fall if you stay.
Yeah, basically. And so a couple points, though, that I want to make here, if I can. First of all, let's give Greg all the credit in the world for appreciating the significance of that intersection and the ability of the Confederates to hit the Union rear. Let's give Greg all the credit in the world for doing that. Let's give Craig the credit for, really having the foresight to tell Custer or ask Custer to stay, because Custer could have said, no, I've got orders. So let's give Greg all the credit for that. But I get a little riled sometimes when I see historians or people on social media kind of saying, well, this was Greg's battle. Custer was just along for the ride.
Oh, yeah.
You're looking at us.
No, I know.
Fired
I know
up on that one.
People love to crap on our heroes.
They do love to crap on
right?
Whether it be Dan Sickles or George Custer.
I saw someone once. I saw someone once try to make. They were like, I saw these people giving Meade credit, and Meade didn't do anything. Hancock should get all the credit for winning the battle at Gettysburg, and I was like, well.
Not to get off on a tangent.
Go ahead.
Not to get off on a tangent, but and we say this a lot on our podcast. The easiest thing to do in studying Gettysburg, you want to win friends and influence people. The easiest thing to do is say, boy, John Buford was awesome. And then if you want to look really deep, boy, and that Hancock, he was great too. It's a lot more challenging, but I think more interesting to go for the tough nuts, the harder personalities, the Custers, the Sickleses, but to study these guys. I mean, anybody could say, oh, Hancock was great.
I mean, it was in his nickname, Superb. Like,
exactly.
How hard is that to say?
How could you screw up with a nickname like Superb? How can that happen?
Well, and how can you screw up? Say it's like the Call Me Ishmael. You go to a party with oh yeah, Call Me Ishmael, and then everybody thinks you're an intellectual.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean, and it's frustrating. But that's an opportunity for people who know better to say, well, no,
it's an opportunity to learn and to educate.
To educate.
So back to where we were.
Go ahead.
So we want to make sure Greg gets all the credit in the world for that.
Right.
But for anybody who says Custer is quote unquote just along for the ride and quote unquote, see I'm making air quotes, didn't really do much at East Cavalry Field, Greg's got about 900 guys out there. By staying, Custer is adding 1,900.
Right.
In addition to, we often forget that he's got Pennington's battery of artillery with him.
Right.
Second battery, Randall's battery, is going to come in a little bit later on. But if Custer and the Wolverines leave, Greg is hopelessly and hilariously outnumbered and outgunned.
Where's his cousin's brigade?
No, his cousin's brigade is, as we said before, J. Irvin, kind of over by some of his guys are over like where Highland Avenue is today, kind of connecting over towards Wolf's Hill.
Is that that monument? It was at the 16th PA Cavalry.
Exactly.
That was part of. So out in that area.
Out in that area.
Okay.
Now Greg later characterized General Greg. Later characterized Little Greg as kind of being his reserve. And, I could have thrown those guys in for reserve. And, look, that's all possible, and maybe they could have. But for all intents and purposes, for the fighting at East Cavalry Field, Colonel Gregg's brigade is basically out of the fight. And it's going to be McIntosh with 900 guys, Custer with 1,900, and then you throw in these two batteries of artillery. And, if we ever get around to talking about the fighting, Custer does exactly what a brigade commander does.
Yeah.
Should do.
Well, okay, so let's get closer to the fighting then.
All right, let's get closer.
So they're out there. Now, what is Stuart's objective going out there?
It's funny you ask. I just happen to have passages from Jeb Stewart's report right
Perfect.
here,
Let's answer this once and for all.
So, obviously, this has brought up a lot of contention and debate over the years. The Custer interest aside, I think my interpretation is different from what you see like a lot of other Rangers and some of the guides are that, because people always tend to focus first on Stewart. What's Stewart doing there? Why was he there and that sort of thing? But again, to understand the strategic significance of Hanover, Low Dutch Road, and why Greg is out there defending it is ultimately the reason that we have a battle out there. But to the question of what is Stewart doing out there, we really only have two semi-primary accounts to work with, and they're Lee's report and Stewart's report. And probably, I'm sure many of the listeners have read one or both of them. But what Lee said in his report was essentially the fact that, Lee talks about the ranks of the cavalry were much reduced by its long marching, repeated conflicts, et cetera, But the day after its arrival at Gettysburg, the cavalry engaged the enemy with unabated spirit and effectually protected our left. And that's all Robert E. Lee says about what Stuart was doing.
So no grand coordinated plan with Pickett's charge to...
Not in terms of what Lee says. Now, you know, there's historians and writers and conspiracy-minded folks who, you know, have likened this to some sort of black ops, you know, special secret assignment, you know, and all the couriers had to eat the messages afterwards, and that's why we don't have anything in the ORs today, you know, and things of that nature. There's been some writers who have, I guess, probably made a pretty good living kind of with that sort of thing. But there's nothing in terms of what Lee says that indicates that was the case. And you know what I always say to people, look at it this way. When Stuart is ordered out to East Cavalry Field, you know, in the morning, he gets out there in the early afternoon. But when he is ordered very early in the morning to proceed out towards the Confederate left, Lee at that time does not know how Pickett's charge is going to take shape. He doesn't know what the objective is going to be, and he certainly doesn't know when the Confederates are going to attack at that point. Okay. So the idea, there's no way Lee could basically tell Stuart, you know, General Stuart, you know, meet me at the copse of trees at 4 p.m.
Right.
You know?
Well, yeah.
And no way.
No. And if you look at all that ground that they would have to cover in order to do that,
the distance.
It's impossible.
So by Stuart, you know, East Cavalry Field is about 3 miles east of town. That would put him about 4 miles east of Seminary Ridge. Mm-hmm. But, you know, to cut through the Hanover Road, Low Dutch Road, Baltimore Pike, you know, that Low Dutch to Baltimore Pike connection is about 2.25 miles. And then you would basically have to turn, fight your way up the Baltimore Pike, get into the rear of the Union Army. You're presuming panicked Yankees are just going to part like the Red Sea and stuff like that. And I think given the distance involved, given the timing involved, and again, Lee doesn't micromanage that way at Gettysburg. He can't. Mm-hmm. I think given all of those factors, we can pretty safely say that Stuart is not part of Pickett's charge. And I'll tell you, when like Wayne and I give Pickett's charge talks, that's the number one question we get.
Is it?
It really is. It really is. It's the most commonly asked question we get when we talk about Pickett's charge. Well, tell us about Stuart.
Well, see, because I remember when I was younger coming here, that seemed to be, and I'm not saying guides said this because I don't remember doing.
They could have.
But I didn't take a lot of guided tours at that point. Okay. So that's why
you gonna blame it on Rangers. Ranger.
No, I'm gonna blame it on the bus tours. Because remember the
Which
audio
would have been led by guides.
No.
Oh, you're thinking the audio?
Back in those days, it was dramatized in stereo. Do you remember this on the double-decker buses?
Sort of.
Well, it was. You remember this, Waylon?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So if you go on the double-decker buses, you would put the headphones on and you would listen. Now it's guides, but they used to have an audio. And it was made in like 1980.
I know. Back in the old days. You old timers. Yeah.
Well, it was old when I was there because it was like almost 20 years old by the time I started going. But anyway, my point is they would present it as like the popular history would present it as, you know, it's this double envelopment type of a move. But then you read very little bit into it and you go, how is that possible?
How is that possible? Now, though, before we write it off completely, you know, I said we've got two primary sources because there's also Stuart's report, you know. And so what Stuart says in his report is he says on the morning of July 3rd, pursuant to instructions from the commanding general. And I think that's an important phrase because it does tell you that Lee has told him to do something. Mm-hmm. You know, I've gotten instructions from the commanding general. I moved forward to a position on General Ewell's left. So again, there's another reference to being on the Confederate left flank.
Right.
Look, protecting the flank. You know, very obvious. That's what cavalry should be doing, especially since Lee was hampered by not having cavalry on his left flank on July 2nd, you know, which the whole Brinker off Ridge thing. Mm-hmm. So that all makes sense. But then Stuart, after talking about some of his troop dispositions, he does add a phrase, you know, I moved through the woods into position and hoped to effect a surprise upon the enemy's rear. So you've got something there.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And so he later adds, he then talks about, you know, basically how other guys screwed up. Hampton and Fitzlee kind of came out and showed the enemy where we were. But Stuart adds another phrase. Had the enemy's main body been dislodged, as was confidently hoped and expected, I was in precisely the right position to discover it and improve the opportunity.
But couldn't that be had Pickett, let's say, won, and the Union Army was in disarray and confusion and retreat and stuff? All he's really doing is just harassing them. He's not bringing about Pickett's victory.
And I think that's where he's going. I think when Stuart, was ordered to the left that morning, Lee has probably told him, we're going to attack again today. We're going to attack the enemy. General Stuart, you're going to have the Hanover Road in front of you. You're going to have approaches to the Baltimore Pike in front of you, because Stuart also witnessed some of the Brinkerhoff Ridge action on July 2nd. And again, he probably knew some of the ground out here. So you're going to have a couple key roads in front of you. Harass the enemy, if they're defeated, which of course we think we're going to defeat them, and if they got to retreat and pull back, harass them, cut them up, do the damage that you can. And I think Stuart being Stuart, he's going to be like the dog with the bone.
Sure.
And, basically say, all right, this is my chance.
Yeah.
And I'll look for any opportunity I can to do it. So I think that's what's going on. We're going to attack today, and we're going to look for an opportunity to cut them up, harass them.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's the infantry still has to deliver the fatal blow,
the goods, right.
or like the second to last blow, and then Stuart, when they're trying to get away and retreat from the area, then he can cut them off. And okay.
Yeah, no, just quick sidebar though. Just yesterday I went down with some friends to Winchester, and we really studied 3rd Winchester, which is September of 1864, and Custer plays a key role at that. He's promoted to division command right after that. But at 3rd Winchester, basically Jubal Early's army was getting hammered by Yankee infantry and kind of falling back. And what do you know what happened? Union cavalry came in on the flank and the rear and kind of helped accelerate the defeat. And I only bring that up for anybody who's kind of sitting at home saying, that couldn't happen. Cavalry's not going to cause infantry to panic. That never happens. Go look.
What's that, Waylon?
Their cavalry doing what
cavalry does.
Yeah. So go look at something like 3rd Winchester before you dismiss it totally. So
there
you go.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, and it is certainly conceivable that if the infantry should succeed, that Stuart would be able to do something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think, so before we get off the topic, you've got people who think Stuart is only protecting the flank. Then you got people who just continue to insist this is part of Pickett's charge. Take the middle road. The middle road. He's protecting the flank. He's looking for that chance to cut him up. And I think that makes sense with what they do, what they say, and frankly, how they act on the battlefield.
I forgot where it was. I think we were interviewing Scott Hartwig the other day, and I think he made the point to say that, a modern person studying this stuff and hearing these things thinks in walkie-talkie terms. Like, they didn't have walkie-talkies. They didn't have communication like that. Right. So you can't be too elaborate in your plans. As Lee, you can't, because you can't orchestrate things as they're going on. You're not getting information in real time. So you have to say, this is what I'd like you to do, but you have to trust that your subordinates are going to be good enough that they can then recognize opportunities and improvise.
And you see that throughout the battles. Stuart here on July 3rd would be an example. Longstreet on July 2nd, maybe Longstreet on July 3rd, Ewell on July 1st. I think that's exactly right. You don't have instantaneous communications. You're delivering your troops to what you think is the right place and time, and then you got to look to your guys on the battlefield to execute.
Real quick, does Stuart have his entire command over there? Is there anybody protecting the right? Because you've got Kilpatrick and Merritt down there on the right. The Confederate right.
Yeah.
So does Lee care about his right at all?
Well, he does. So you've got kind of what they call on July 3rd on the right flank, kind of like the ragtag and the bobtag. So ragtag and bobtail is the phrase they use. But they kind of have kind of this mishmash of troops kind of on Longstreet's right flank on July 3rd. Yeah, what Stuart has on the left flank is he's basically got Hampton's brigade, Chambliss's brigade, Fitz Lee, and then Jenkins' brigade, which on July 3rd is commanded by probably my favorite Confederate on the battlefield, Colonel Vincent Witcher. And I like Witcher because he's got the coolest nickname.
Witcher, yeah.
Clawhammer. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Clawhammer, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, but to your point.
Beyond that, why is he your favorite, though?
Because of Clawhammer.
Just because of the nickname?
Yeah, because of the cool nickname. So.
All right, fine.
Yeah, it's a cool nickname.
No, it's a great one.
It is a great one.
Was he a banjo player?
No, you would think, because we like to do a lot of wrestling stuff on our show, and you would kind of think he had like a clawhammer move or that. But I guess he liked swallowtail coats. So
okay.
Some Confederate was looking at him from behind and said,
Thought
"Hey,
he looked like a
girl,
claw."
you look like a clawhammer." So the story is not good, but the nickname is awesome.
Okay, yeah, the
right?
nickname is awesome.
Clawhammer.
Yeah.
But beyond that, Witcher was just some rough around the edges, badass from West Virginia kind of guy, and his men were described as mounted infantry, and he just liked to fight, and I think because he's just a cool guy because of that.
Okay,
but the nickname is cool, Clawhammer. So we got Custer going up against Clawhammer. How cool is that?
Custer versus Clawhammer.
But there was a question here, and I forgot what the question. Oh, how many? Well, let's just talk.
Oh, who was in his command? Yeah.
Yeah. So we got those 4 brigades. Now again, this is an area that will confuse people a lot because if you look at Stuart's strength on paper, he should probably have 6,500 to close to 7,000 guys. And so what you see is people will look at that on paper and, oh my God, Custer was outnumbered 2-1, kind of thing. And he really isn't, because Stuart's guys, they're worn down for marching 200 plus miles and all of the skirmishes, engagements they've had prior to Gettysburg. So by the time they come up here, people who have kind of broken down the numbers, and I usually just go with it, think Stuart's probably got about 4,800 men at East Cavalry Field. Again, many of them exhausted, and many of the horses exhausted, which, no doubt plays a factor in the outcome.
So, real quick again, just name the brigades that he's got. He's got Witcher.
Yeah, he's got Wade Hampton.
He's
got Wade
Lee.
Hampton, Fitz Lee, Chambliss. And then Jenkins, normally Jenkins, which is under Witcher.
Okay.
Yeah.
But now we're missing Imboden and Robertson.
Yeah, and Rummel Jones.
And Jones.
Right. Well, remember, some of those guys are out at Fairfield. They're in and around Fairfield.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but Imboden's independent command?
Yeah, and Bowden he's basically, and I'm trying to think where he is specifically at this point on July 3rd, but Bowden is out, rounding up prisoners and guarding the trains and
he's back
stuff
at Chambersburg.
like that. He's back. I don't think he's that far out, but he's back to the west. And then Jones and Robertson, again, they're pulling out of Fairfield at this time on July 3rd, which leads to that whole action out there.
Okay. All right, so there is cavalry over on the right.
Yeah.
But okay.
Not the immediate right.
Right.
What we think of the right flank of the Army of Northern Virginia is primarily Evander Law's brigade, and then kind of this mashup of guys that they've pulled out of the hospitals and things like that under, I think it's Colonel John Black, if I remember the name correctly. So.
All right. So now East Cavalry Field.
Yeah.
Let's get to the fight.
Get to East Cavalry Field.
Let's get to the fight now. How does it start? Go ahead.
So Stuart gets out there probably about noon. So we've established that Gregg and Custer are now guarding the strategic intersection. So the Yankees, they throw skirmishers out. Skirmishers start to head out towards the John and Sarah Rummel Farm. Now, do I keep talking?
Yeah, keep talking.
All right. Matt just dropped his microphone here. So we send McIntosh's brigade then deploys along the Hanover Road. So we kind of have almost like an L-shaped Union defense along the Hanover. I should say the Hanover and the Low Dutch Road is what I meant to say. But you kind of have an L-shaped defense kind of along those two roads now with McIntosh, Custer, and some artillery on the field. Stuart arrives, and he sets off some artillery rounds. And for years, this was often interpreted as Stuart setting off a signal shot to Lee.
Yes.
Hey, General Lee, I'm here, kind of thing. But again, as we talked about, there's 4 miles in between them. By this time, you've almost got the cannonades starting prior to Pickett's charge. I don't think Lee is going to see, hear, or recognize a couple of signal shots from, 4 miles away. But Stuart is doing what is probably more of a recon by fire. And he is basically sending some shots off towards the Low Dutch Hanover Road to try to determine, if there's any Yankees
what's there, yeah.
And sure enough, the Yankees respond. So Pennington and Randall's artillery batteries, they respond. They open fire. Now you've got the two sides kind of trading some sporadic artillery fire. And Stewart says that his plan was basically to employ the enemy in front with sharpshooters. So he sends Witcher and a couple hundred guys dismounted down to the John and Sarah Rummel Farm, and they now start trading shots, dismounted again. They start trading shots with the Union skirmish line, which is kind of formed up along where the Rummel Farm lane is, where First New Jersey Monument is, and kind of in that area today. So the action really begins as kind of dismounted skirmishing.
Now, at this point, I remember I was reading somewhere that it said that Stewart had about 1,500 dismounted skirmishers out there. Does that?
I think probably this initial group that's sent forward to the Rummel Farm is really only about 200 guys.
Okay. So, but eventually,
a couple more regiments are going to kind of come in to support them. And, on the Union side, I mean, you're looking at elements of the 3rd Pennsylvania, the 1st New Jersey, Custer's 6th Michigan. So it's definitely going to grow, as the action escalates. But initially, it's kind of just starting with a couple hundred guys.
Okay. So then it escalates. What happens?
Yeah. And so initially the skirmish fire, goes back and forth, and Witcher's guys take up in the Rummel Barn, which probably most of us know the Rummel Barn on East Cavalry Field today is still the original barn.
Right. You can still see bullet holes and everything in there.
You can still see battle damage in the barn. Now, the house that's out there today is post-war, but the barn is wartime. And you have, meanwhile, the Yankee skirmish line also picking up some muscle. Eventually, Custer's 5th Michigan is going to go on the skirmish line. And the 5th Michigan is unique because they're the only unit at Gettysburg fully equipped with the 56 caliber Spencer rifles, the repeating rifles, all right? You get that on tours all the time. No, Buford had no, he didn't.
Right.
It's Custer. So the 5th Michigan gets on the line and now is just starting to pump some bullets into Witcher's guys. Witcher runs out of ammunition and he goes back to kind of get some reinforcements. So while this is going on, basically Stewart is then going to order Fitz-Lee's 1st Virginia, which is about 300 men, to launch a mounted charge that is eventually going to kind of drive the skirmishers back and set up more of the mounted fighting, action that's going to occur next.
Set up the Michigan skirmishers.
Well, to set up the mounted fighting. So we've kind of done the skirmish line here.
Right.
I always kind of look at the fighting here at East Cavalry in phases. You have this dismounted action out at the barn, and then kind of when that kind of wears itself out, then you get into these mounted charges, which are kind of the second and third phases of it.
So the mounted charges then begin. What would you say? It was the 6th Michigan that was up there with the Spencers? 5th. So the 5th is up there with the Spencers. That kind of like halts Witcher's men for a bit, doesn't it? Because they're the first volley goes off, and then they try to rush them before they could load, and then the second volley comes in.
Well, the Witcher's guys are at that point outgunned. But the other problem that the 5th Michigan has is, they don't really have a lot of training in fire control. So, the great thing with the repeating rifles is obviously the firepower that they can throw at the Confederates. And, that famous quote, one captured Confederate says, "UN's load in the morning and, shoot all week." Day, kind of thing. Yeah. That supposedly comes from this. But the 5th Michigan, too, because they don't have the fire control, they also start to run out of ammunition.
Right.
So, I would characterize the skirmish fighting as, nobody really gets an upper hand in that. Witcher's guys start in the barn. They move forward. The Yankees throw more guys on the skirmish line. The Confederates move back, stuff like that. And it's just sort of that kind of seesaw back and forth stuff.
It's like guys getting in a brawl at a bar. At first it's just a lot of like light shoving and, and just kind of like thumping the chest.
Maybe a rabbit punch or two.
Yeah, like a little punch something. But then you get that one punch in that like really just hits the nerve on the side of the arm or it just makes you angry, and then you really haul off, and then you get into it.
Yeah, well, Witcher was later, Stewart kind of later blamed Witcher, Clawhammer, for wasting ammunition. Clawhammer, you can imagine Clawhammer's like, kind of pissed about that. And Witcher then later kind of thought that the 14th and the 16th Virginia didn't support him properly. Yeah, so you got a lot of the guys in the Confederates kind of blaming each other in that. But
so the fifth they fall back. And now what are they? They mount up because they're out of ammo, right? The ammo train was like a couple miles back, wasn't it?
Well, they've probably got ammunition at least nearby or sort of thing. But the real key is, I think Stuart. I read this passage I think a minute ago, but I only kind of went with the first half of it. But I said that Stuart wanted to employ the enemy with sharpshooters, but then Stuart also wanted to move a command of cavalry upon their flank from the position that we held. Mm-hmm. So at least what Stuart claims he's doing is, you use kind of the bar fight analogy, right? You've kind of got one guy, you're punching him in the face, and then your friend comes around and punches him in the side of the head.
Okay.
And I think that's what Stuart is really trying to do here. So he has, the 1st Virginia, which I said is about 300 guys. He has them mount up, and they kind of sweep around the Confederate left, kind of go around the Rummel barn and kind of sweep around and then kind of start heading towards this Hanover Low Dutch Road intersection.
Okay.
All right. So they've got, and probably at that point, I think most of the Union skirmish line, you see a large body of enemy cavalry coming around you. What did you say before? Cavalry doing what cavalry does, right? If you're sitting there along the fence line and you see a couple hundred enemy troops on horse coming around your flank and your rear, you're going to fall back.
Sure.
And I think that's kind of when the skirmish action, for the most part, more or less falls apart.
Okay, gotcha. So they go back to the main line.
Yeah. Now, so they go back. So meanwhile, you've got this mounted assault coming at the Union position. So Gregg orders one of Custer's units, the 7th Michigan, to basically mount up and counterattack.
Then that's the youngest regiment in the brigade, right?
Yep. So they're coming in. So the 7th Michigan Colonel William Mann is ordered to basically counterattack, and Gregg issues that order directly to Colonel Mann, but. Yeah, you see where this is going. You're George Armstrong Custer. Are you just going to kind of sit behind?
Especially after yesterday. I got to redeem myself.
Well, and hey, I liked doing charges yesterday. Yeah, I'm going to do another one today.
Right.
So remember yesterday he said something like, come on boys, I'll be with you or something. He's perfected it a little bit. So this is when he does the immortal, come on you Wolverines. So he sprints out in front of the guys, goes, come on you Wolverines, and with Custer in the lead, these 400 guys are coming up against Fitz Lee's guys, and it looks like as Mike Phipps, legendary battlefield guide, who
passed away.
I know. One of my earliest programs on the field, he referred to this as Cavalry Valhalla. Now, if you ever dealt with Mike on social media, and who hasn't, he
I've witnessed what happens when you deal with Mike on social media.
Mike kind of referred to everything as Valhalla, but I think in this case it was because it's got a little bit of everything.
Sure.
So you got these two mounted bodies of troops coming at each other. They're going to slam into each other. When unfortunately Custer's guys basically slam into a post and rail fence that somebody just hasn't kind of taken.
Yeah, because they don't know it's there.
Clearly they don't.
Yeah, but
you would hope they don't know.
But at first they do. Don't they push back Fitz Lee's guys until they get over this hill where the fence is?
Well, what happens is Fitz Lee's guys, I think, kind of stop on what would kind of be the north or the western side of the fence.
Okay.
Because we don't really know today even where the fence was, but Fitz Lee's guys kind of stop on the Confederate side of the fence. Custer's guys coming up on the other side, they slam into it. Fitz Lee's guys have dismounted, so now you got dismounted fighting going on at the fence. Guys, Custer's guys are getting pulled out of the saddle. Pistols, sabers. I mean, you got the whole
big mess.
You got the whole big mess thing going. Maybe you're bar fight analogy. Maybe now we're hitting guys in the head with the beer bottles.
Now it's getting to be like a Western where everybody's involved, including the bar girls.
You're right, the big roundhouse punches, all that stuff.
People are falling off the balcony.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
But they're getting in this fight, and then isn't there another fence like only a few, maybe dozen yards away that the Confederates get behind, and now they're shooting at the Yankees?
Well, yeah, they're on the other side of the fence, and they're shooting at each other and all this stuff. Now, Custer's in a world of hurt here at this point. because initially he's had this pile up at the fence. He's lost all command, control, cohesion of the unit. You've got dismounted Confederates fighting at him. But some of the other Yankee units on the field, some of the other Michigan guys, and even some of McIntosh's troops do also kind of come in to kind of help, soften the blow here a little bit. And, as the story goes, one of the guys says to Custer, we got to get out of here. And he goes, yes, I know, kind of thing. But I always point out, Custer doesn't retreat. It's a retro movement. It's we're going to go reform. We don't retreat when we're General Custer.
No.
But eventually his guys mount up and they will kind of circle back from whence they came, back again towards the Hanover Road. I think for the most part, Fitz-Lee's guys stay in and around the fence area. They don't pursue, but if they do have any thoughts of pursuing, you've got Pennington and Randall's Union batteries on the field that are throwing shell and stuff at the Confederates. That's going to discourage them.
Yeah,
and it's going to give Custer and his guys a chance to to kind of reform.
Yeah, they. I think Custer says something like, "Yes, we have to get back under the guns" or something like that.
That's
right?
it. And so, Custer basically said, our advance reached a high and unbroken fence behind which the enemy was strongly posted. General Gregg, who ordered the charge, basically characterizes the charge as being not successful. But it did have kind of its intended purpose in stopping the forward momentum of the Yankees. Or I'm sorry, of the Confederates, I meant.
Yeah.
So, on the Yankee side, McIntosh, I love this. Colonel McIntosh is kind of trying to meet the Wolverines as they're coming back, and he's going, for God's sakes, man, stop running. You're on free soil, kind of stuff. But I think all joking aside, I think the Wolverines at this point, the 7th is pretty broken up a little bit.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
And, if you're Custer, what are you thinking now? You're kind of 0 for 2 in terms of, mounted charges. You ran into Confederates yesterday. You're smashed into a fence today. You might be thinking you're...
maybe I'm done with this.
Yeah. Hey, maybe I'm going to see if there's any openings on the staff officer side again.
Maybe the staff was a little more cushy of a job.
But, of course, we're joking. Because
we are
that
joking.
Is not what George Armstrong Custer is going to think.
It would not be Custer to do that.
That's not Custer-like.
Nope. So what does he do?
Well, what
happens?
Well, it's funny you should ask. So now we're approaching about 3 o'clock.
Okay.
And another line of Confederate horsemen is going to come out from their position on Crest Ridge, which is kind of out near the Rummel Farm. This is going to be a larger body of troops, and today we don't even really know which regiments were involved. Wade Hampton kind of said that he didn't order the charge. A lot of authors kind of think that Stewart ordered this second charge, but Stewart says in his own report that basically the hand-to-hand fighting just sort of spread to the greater portion of the command.
Okay.
So what I think is you've got just a lot of confusion going on at this point. You've got mounted guys, you've got dismounted guys, you've got fleeing Yankees, you've got artillery fire going back and forth. I think there's a lot of confusion.
It's a big mess.
Yeah, and actually what Wade Hampton says is that he thinks one of his staff officers basically just said, "Hey, Fitz-Lee's guys need some help. Let's
go help them.
Let's go help them." So the key is more Confederates mount up and start coming this way again. McIntosh's brigade is pretty much stationary at this point. They've been told by General Gregg to kind of hold the Low Dutch Road, at all hazards. So, Matt, we're going to need somebody else to kind of meet this mounted charge.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, who would that be?
Well, I don't know. I guess that would be Custer's 1st Michigan.
There you go. The oldest in the brigade.
Colonel Charlestown, suffering from consumption. He's so weak and sickly that he's got to be strapped into his saddle kind of thing.
Yep.
One of these guys who reportedly sought death on the battlefield so that he wouldn't, have to find it at home kind of thing. Gregg orders Colonel Town to basically mount up the 1st Michigan and charge.
Yes.
Now, you think Custer's going to be left behind this time?
Hell no.
We're kind of repeating ourselves
right.
here.
I mean, come on.
So, Colonel Town, weak, sickly, kind of starts, giving his guys a pep talk, for Michigan, for your sweethearts, all that stuff. And Custer comes barging in This is Colonel Town. The 7th Michigan is broke. Will you charge with me? Well, yeah, I was kind of already ordered to, kind of thing. Doesn't matter. Saddle up and let's go.
Right.
So once again, Custer leads another charge across the same field. Maybe he says, "Come on, you Wolverines," again.
Doesn't matter now.
Doesn't matter at this point. I think
he said it once and we know it.
A charge is a charge, right? And so, he's bareheaded at this point. He's 4 lengths in the lead. And I've got a quote from a trooper that I would like to read.
Go ahead.
The guy says that Custer's long, straight saber is gleaming in the sunshine. He is bareheaded and glorious. His yellow locks of hair are flying like a battle flag, as beautiful as the eye ever gazed upon.
Wow.
Do you see many military descriptions like that?
No, and
really
that's the
don't.
thing is like his men loved him after this battle especially, but like they all, well, we'll get there at the end.
See how I deftly tied that into your earlier question about how he was going to win the men over. This is exactly how he does it. So he's 4 lengths in the lead. Meanwhile, now on the Confederate side, Wade Hampton has kind of caught up with the moving troops, and Wade Hampton is kind of leading the Confederates in. Custer's leading the 1st Michigan in, and literally, give or take, somewhere about where the Michigan Brigade Monument is on the field today, bam, 2 sides just slam into each other. And,
I can't imagine what that's like. Have you ever heard horses when they're just kind of frolicking in a pasture? Have you ever heard them collide?
Not at full speed like that.
Well,
I
no.
never have.
At a much slower speed, it's this loud thump.
Yeah.
And so the thought of full gallop, hundreds of horses, and the men on them, and the clinking and clanking of sabers.
Well, they described that. One of the observers, basically said that this was like the crashing of falling timber. Horses are somersaulting, and again, guys got the sabers and they're cutting and slashing. The firing of pistols, the demands for surrender, the cries of combatants. All of this stuff was now filling the air. So,
it's got to be frightening. And how do you get the animals to run right into each other like that? Obviously they're broken well and they're trained well to overcome their fight or flight, or their flight, I guess, is really what they're overcoming. But to be a man on top of that horse saying, yeah, let's keep going. I can't imagine it.
And you're trying to manage your saber, you're trying to manage your pistol. I get guys who kind of envision them, pumping the rifles into each other. Let's not get carried away.
That's too Hollywood.
But they're slashing away and they're shooting at each other with the pistols and that sort of thing. And again, we'll use the cavalry Valhalla phrase because I think it's appropriate here.
Sure.
I mean, if you're a cavalry enthusiast, you've got some of the biggest names of the war. Custer, Hampton, Stewart, all these guys going at it right now with almost every tactic imaginable.
There's I think a witness from McIntosh's brigade watching this says, as the opposing columns drew nearer and nearer, each with perfect alignment, every man gathered his horse well under him and gripped his weapon the tighter.
There you go.
I mean, I would imagine you would be gripping anything you can get your hands on before you go into that thing. So now here's a question though I have.
Right.
Custer's hatless. What happened to his hat?
Well, he lost the hat somewhere. Maybe when he crashed into the fence.
I hope he got it back.
I'm sure somebody got him a hat.
I wouldn't.
He didn't go for the rest of the war without a hat.
No, we know this. We know this. But my question is, though, the famous photograph of him with that gaudy uniform. The black uniform, not the where he changes it to the regular Union blue, like the original black one though. He is hatless in that, isn't he? Do we have any of him in that uniform with a hat?
Yeah, we do.
We do.
Yeah,
okay.
we do. Right, because I'm thinking in my mind's eye right now, kind of the one of him sitting with the hat on.
Well, that's a different uniform.
65. Oh,
see, that's the thing.
I think we look to our Custer photo references here in the studio.
I think I have. Hold on,
Matt. He had a hat.
Okay,
he's got hats.
I just want to make sure. I wonder what hat he had on.
Maybe someone picked up the hat. I don't know. Maybe
somebody grabbed it. Oh, and gave it back to him later.
Maybe the hat he's wearing at Gettysburg wasn't the cool hat that we think of him as.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
Like, what if he had a stupid hat on?
Well, I've seen some accounts that he kind of started out with a straw hat. So, if we're happy with the hats.
Well, it was summer.
He'll get a hat.
Give him the
He's
hat.
fair-skinned. He can't go without the hat.
He needed that. He was a ginger. So he... Blondish ginger.
Blondish red,
strawberry
that's right.
ginger.
That's right.
All right, so does that basically end it for East Cavalry Field then after that second charge?
No.
Oh, my God. What happens?
Because, now remember, Custer's outnumbered at this point. He's
Right.
only got one regiment. Again, maybe 1,500 or so Confederates are kind of swarming in around him. He's going to need help.
Crazy, yes.
And I know your listeners want to make sure that we give due credit to McIntosh's brigade.
A lot of McIntosh fans out there.
There are. Long John.
Long John,
So,
yes.
I don't forget that. Anyways. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Anyways, where was I? William E. Miller, commanding a squadron of the 3rd Pennsylvania. William E. Miller, he would basically be on Hampton's left flank. He's commanding the woodlot, or he's defending one of the woodlots along the Low Dutch Road. Miller sees an opportunity here to come crashing into Hampton's left flank. And with that, the famous quote, Miller turns to his lieutenant, guy by the name of William Brooke Rull, who's very instrumental in
he's trying to be like Custer, but he's not as good, so he says, "Come on, you squirrels." Right?
I don't remember that one.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm confusing him with someone else.
I think there's a lot of confusion today.
Okay, but no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So Miller goes to Rull, and the quote is, he says, "Hey, I've been ordered to hold this position at all hazards, but if I'm court-martialed for moving forward, will you support me?" And Rull says, "Yes, I will." And so the two of them, they mount up their squadron of the 3rd PA, and they go crashing into Hampton's left flank. So now the Confederates are getting it left, center, and even some of the guys who had fallen back from the skirmish line before, they're kind of coming around to the Confederate front right. Really, at this point, it's the Hampton and the Confederates who are pinned down, and they're getting it from multiple directions. Hampton, great story. He's getting slashed by some Yankee. Some Yankee kind of shoots him kind of in the back, and Hampton slashes him out of the saddle. And then another guy cuts his saber over Hampton's head, and Hampton curses him as a coward and shoots that guy down. So Hampton finally gets off the field, but with Miller and Custer and all of these other guys swarming him, at that point the Confederate momentum has basically come to a stop.
The 3rd PA, that's that monument that's off in that little grove of cedars that over there when you first go on. Okay,
exactly.
So they're to the right of the Michigan Brigade.
Yep, front right.
Okay. And then the other...
You look pained thinking about this.
No, my eyes itching me. But no, so then I'm just trying to picture it in my head. To the left of the Michigan Brigade is some of Greg's men?
Yeah, to the left of the Michigan Brigade, it would be some of Greg's guys.
Okay.
And then also you've got even kind of like Custer's Zone 6th Michigan kind of over there on the left. But focus on the Union front and right, because that's really where the action's
Right,
happening.
okay.
And remember, Miller's awarded a Medal of Honor for this. So not only is he not court-martialed, but he's really the only guy out there who receives a Medal of Honor.
And didn't they? I think I read a quote somewhere that said that Miller and his men cut through like a shit. I can't remember what the analogy was now, but there was some good. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, I think I do, and it's hard for those of us who just think of infantry combat because we think of guys in lines and formations and all that stuff. You got guys on horses all over the place. Some of these guys. Some of Miller's guys do get as far forward probably as the Rummel Farm. And that might be kind of what you're thinking of. Eventually, they later said they actually chased the Confederates back to the Rummel Farm and beyond.
Right.
But when John Rummel, the farmer, came out later, supposedly there were dead men and dead horses in his farm lane. Two of them were supposedly dead with their hands around each other's throats kind of stuff. Miller came back after the war, and Rummel said he found Miller's sword in the farm lanes. So these guys are all over the place.
I can't imagine what that looks like the sound alone of a cavalry fight with the horses screaming, and that alone has to be horrifying.
Because have you ever seen a cavalry reenactment?
Yeah.
Right.
That's so close.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so close. It's exactly what you're thinking.
That's probably the closest we'll ever see. Them tickling each other with their sabers. All right. Well, now, so the Confederate tide is turned there. The Stuart's tide is
momentum
checked.
Stopped. Exactly.
And he goes back over to, was that Crest Ridge?
Yep.
And What do they do? Just stare at each other for the rest of the battle, or what happens?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, both sides kind of withdraw to where they started. As is normally the case, both sides kind of claim victory. But clearly, if you look at whatever Stuart was trying to do, I mean, he's certainly done a nice job of protecting the Confederate left. So, you could give him partial credit for that. But if he was indeed trying to effect any surprise upon the Union rear, obviously that didn't happen, and he didn't. Meanwhile, Greg said, look, our role was to hold and defend this position, and we did. So I think you got to kind of give the tactical victory to Greg and Custer.
Yeah. Well, Custer's the best in the world, so of course we're going to give him the... All right, so we're going to take a quick break now, and then we're going to come back and answer the questions from our patrons. So don't go anywhere.
Think outside the bus and let Getty's Bike Tours show you the only way to truly experience Gettysburg. There's a reason why Getty's Bike Tours is the longest running bicycle tour company in Gettysburg, and that's because they put the customer's experience and safety at the top of their list of priorities. Follow a licensed battlefield guide through some of the most legendary ground in American history. There's a tour route for everyone, from the newbie to the hardcore history buff. So go to gettysbike.com or call 717-752-7752 and book your reservation today. Mention Addressing Gettysburg and receive 10% off your tour. Discount does not apply to rentals. That's gettysbike.com or 717-752-7752.
Tell you what, this might come in handy if the lockdowns continue throughout the winter. Plowman Cider is a proud sponsor of Addressing Gettysburg and wants to offer our listeners the chance to bring Adams County's delicious agricultural countryside to the comfort of your own home this winter. Grown and fermented on Plowman's 7th-generation family farm, their heirloom and bittersweet apple varieties create ciders that would have been familiar to our ancestors but will be new to your modern taste buds. You can get Plowman Cider on Gettysburg's historic Lincoln Square at their tap room, or have it shipped to your home by visiting plowmancider.com. Addressing Gettysburg listeners can use the coupon code CIDERPOD at checkout to enjoy 15% off your order. So put a taste of Adams County in your glass this winter with Plowman Cider. Go to plowmancider.com and use promo code CIDERPOD for 15% off. That's plowghmancider.com. You must be 21 years of age and shipping is subject to your state's regulations.
The History of North America podcast is a sweeping historical saga of the United States, Canada, and Mexico, from their deep origins to our present epoch. Join me, Mark Vinette, on this exciting, fascinating, epic journey through time, focusing on the compelling, wonderful, and tragic stories of North America's inhabitants, heroes, villains, leaders, environment, and geography. This incredible historical adventure follows a path of exciting events led by interesting people who reach beyond their grasp to touch key moments in time. The History of North America podcast series is an educational and entertaining look at the thrilling chronicle of North America, an action-packed tale of a continent that is still unfolding. I invite you to come along for the ride.
Gettysburg, a nation divided. The battle that changed America. Avatars, generals, artifacts, games, 360-degree views, an immersive battlefield experience. A new way to discover history. Gettysburg, a nation divided, an augmented reality, narrated by Scott Eastwood.
Download it from your phone's app store today and support Addressing Gettysburg by entering GBurg1863 in the referral code prompt after downloading. Hey Gettysburg business owners, 2021 is just around the corner, and that means that in a few months, people will be planning their spring, summer, and fall trips. So why not tell them about your business through Addressing Gettysburg? Did you know that younger families look for shorter vacations and they plan their itinerary before they ever set foot in their destination? Did you know that Addressing Gettysburg provides great exposure to several thousand listeners within a 4 to 8 hour drive of Gettysburg each month, and tens of thousands more outside of that area? Did you know that by the time someone sees your ad in an expensive print publication after they've arrived, they've already made their plans and it's too late to convert them? Or did you know that our listeners have not only a love of the history of Gettysburg, but also of the place itself and the many awesome businesses we have to patronize? With 57% of Americans listening to podcasts these days, there's really no good reason to not get on board with Addressing Gettysburg. So take advantage of our ground floor rates while they last. Contact us at advertise@addressinggettysburg.com. That's advertise@addressinggettysburg.com.
You're listening to the Addressing Gettysburg podcast with Matt Cavalry.
All right, we're back now, ladies and gentlemen, and we've got some questions from our patrons for Jim Hessler about East Cavalry Field. These questions are submitted over at patreon.com/addressinggettysburg. If you'd like to submit some questions for our guides to answer and get the exclusive content that we have over there and support the show and all that jazz, then go over to Patreon and become a patron today. I'm sorry. I had you muted. Go ahead, Sid.
I can't possibly imagine there was anything we haven't covered that would warrant a question.
I know. We might have some repeats here, but let's see. Kathleen Roeder, she's going to make her debut today with this question. Does the debate over whether Custer saves the day ultimately rest upon evidence as to what Lee's orders are to Stuart? As far as I know, there's no record of his actual orders. Was Stuart meant to create a diversion? Okay, so we asked this before, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and we addressed the first part of it, but I think, then the historiography around saving the day is something that kind of builds up afterwards, in great part because of this confusion over what was Stuart ordered to do or not ordered to do. So it became easy, not only for authors, because we always blame it on modern authors, but a lot of the participants. Henry McClellan on Stuart's staff, William Brooke Rawle, who we mentioned before, one proponent on each side. The guys who fought out there obviously wanted to build this up into the biggest thing that they thought they could possibly get out of it, and it became saving the Union.
This came up on a previous episode. I don't remember what exactly. Eric, you might remember this. I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but I feel like it was Tim.
Really?
I feel like it was Tim, and I think we were talking about how he was trying to say, well, it wasn't really that much big of a deal over there. And, just the cavalry guys. The cavalry guys just, felt like they had to get their 2 cents. So they started making it seem like it was a big deal. Do you remember this?
It was Tim, and he was talking about in the late 1880s.
Yeah. That started becoming
East
the thing where
Cavalry Field was basically completely neglected.
Right.
The GBMA didn't own any property out there at least as late as 1891. And he kind of made it seem like the cavalry veterans felt like they had been slighted, so they started to make this story out to be a whole lot bigger than it was. And I tend to agree.
Yeah, I think
this is another one of these cavalry haters.
Can we cut his mic? No. I mean, look, that basic story is right. Because you see it in the speeches and the monument dedications. I mean, you see it. Well, while everybody was talking about Pickett's charge, you forgot about what happened over here and that sort of thing.
If let's say Stuart had broken through and pushed Gregg and his men back, okay? How long... what's going on with Kilpatrick over on the left, and how long would it take for him to get some troops to the aid of Gregg if Stuart is pushing them back?
Well, the non-scientific answer is it would take Kilpatrick a while to get anybody over there because, you think about by mid to late afternoon, Kilpatrick by that point has his hands full staging his attack.
Yes.
Staging his attack on, the Confederate right, which we know today is the fighting at South Cavalry Field.
And he's only got Farnsworth and Merritt over there, right?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. So he's got Farnsworth and Merritt over there. Now, if Stewart breaks through, and should we do the what if stuff?
Go ahead.
Should we do the what if stuff?
Ahead.
If Stewart breaks through, his exhausted men and horses have to fight their way through to the Baltimore Pike. They would then have to create this panic in the Union rear. And we touched on a lot of this earlier. And the primary reason why that wouldn't work is because the infantry didn't do their job. So all you cavalry haters out there, I'm putting this one on the Confederate infantry, right?
But also, if
the artillery. Let's blame the Confederate.
Of course, overshooting and If Stewart's able to push Gregg off of the area where East Cavalry Field is, right, and they go back. They can go back and they can make another stand. Just because they push them off that field doesn't mean that they're routed and completely destroyed. They could just redeploy somewhere else, and they can make Stewart pay for every inch of ground that he gets before he even gets to the Baltimore Pike.
And you're right. But, the only thing I'll say, because it's always hard for us, being armchair historians, what we can't recreate sitting in the comfort of our propane-fueled studios.
Yeah.
What we can't recreate is exhaustion.
No.
Morale, fatigue, fear, panic. That just goes not even for East Cavalry Field, but any part of any battlefield.
Sure.
We can't recreate that stuff. Now, again, I don't want to feel like I'm arguing that Stewart could have done it, because I don't think he could have done it. But back to the point about, they were making this into something bigger than it really was kind of thing. No, I think they really thought we defended the back door to the Union Army. I don't really see a lot of veteran accounts that say Custer saved the Union. A lot of that, I'm not saying there aren't any out there, but
right, but you haven't seen a lot of them.
A lot of the veteran stuff, again, McClellan, Kidd, Rull, Gregg, a lot of this stuff is more measured and responsible than we give it credit for. Mm-hmm. But what they did want credit for was exactly that. We were attacked. The door to the back of the Union Army was right behind us, and God damn it, can I say that on the show?
You just
damn
did.
It, we held them off, and I think that's what they should get credit for.
And back to what Eric was saying before about how it was the 1880s, you said, when all that rhetoric started and everything. Custer's been dead now for 4 years, and now he's like, "Oh, Custer, we miss you," and so that's that would be a new thing for to
absolutely and I actually say that a lot on tours. By the 1880s, when this memorialization era is starting, not only is Custer dead, but Stewart is long dead as well. So you really have both sides kind of have their martyr, and Henry McClellan and these guys, they want to kind of lionize Stewart and his missed opportunity. Yeah. But as you said, Custer's dead in 1876. By the 1880s, he was a national hero. Yep. And again, a martyr. And look what he did to help win the Battle of Gettysburg.
Yeah, and I didn't think of it. It's these two martyrs meeting on the same battlefield.
I always say, look, if they had both been alive in the 1880s, 1890s, our view and our understanding of East Cavalry might be totally different.
Well, and that's another thing, too, is had Custer not died at the Little Bighorn, would he be that big? Would he? Because that's what captured my imagination as a kid, right?
Like I said before,
Little Bighorn.
You work backwards to the Civil War with Custer.
Even though I saw they died with their boots on, I was too young to really understand the chronology and everything like that. And what really just captured my I was bored with the movie until Little Bighorn. So,
which, of course, is a total farce the way they do it.
Yeah. But as I got older, I remember being shocked. I remember this book, Custer Victorious. My dad had it. And I just remember looking at the cover of it, and I was like, well, that looks kind of interesting. And then
Daddy, Custer won?
Yeah, and I was like, what are you talking about? I thought he died. And he goes, no, this is before he died. And I thought he was just born to die. I didn't realize that there was a before the Little Bighorn. And it's this whole book about how the opening scene of this book with him rescuing the POWs. Remember the scene?
I haven't read the book in a long time. I'll take your I'll take your word for it.
The short of it is, I keep doing this. Hold on, sorry, folks. The short of it is that he it starts with, I don't remember the regiments and all that stuff or where or when this was, but it was 64, I think. 64, 65. There's this POW. He was underage. He had just joined, and I think he was like in his first battle, and he got captured. And he was kicking himself. He's like, man, if I had just followed the rules and waited till I was 18, I wouldn't be in this mess. My dad didn't want me to go. He's all pissed at himself. He's angry. And he's being marched along by some rebs to the rear to go to some train or whatever. And all of a sudden, they hear this commotion coming out of the woods. And they see, Confederate guards running and everything. It's like, what's going on? And then out of nowhere comes this line of cavalry out of the woods, just chasing everybody down. And a good distance ahead of the whole line is this circus rider with the reins in his teeth, and I think a saber in one hand and a pistol in the other, like Rooster Cogburn kind of. And they rescue the POWs and everything. That's the opening scene of Custer Victorious, and it's like, what a great story. And then you want to read the rest of it.
Yeah, you want to learn more about this.
Yeah, it's really a great book, ladies and gentlemen. You should get it. Okay, let's move on to the next question here. The great Matt Borders from the History Things podcast. He is also making his debut as a questioner here. He asks, what effect or not did Stuart's wayward ride have on the fighting in East Cavalry Field? Were his troopers hindered, or had they had enough time to
recover?
What? Yes. Recuperate. He spelled it wrong, and it's throwing me off. He said recuperate, and I'm like, wait, I know the word is something else. Go ahead, recuperate.
Yeah, there's no doubt there's an impact, and we talked a little bit about that in the narrative. Stuart's guys again are probably down from 6,500 to maybe about 4,800 effectives. There are accounts of men falling asleep in the saddle. A lot of these guys in between the various charges and countercharges that we talked about, in between, a lot of these guys are taking naps under trees. So there's no doubt that Stuart's ride has an impact on their performance. But don't forget, too, Kilpatrick's guys, Custer's Wolverines, they've been doing some marching and fighting of their own over the last couple of days. Hanover, Hunterstown, et cetera, et cetera. And while I would not say that they are exhausted to any degree that Stuart's guys are, I think there's no doubt that both sides are pretty well worn out on July 3rd, and really kind of amazing that they can put up both sides can put up the kind of fight that they do. Yeah.
It is. And that not only the people, but the animals have the energy to do all this crazy stuff.
Yeah, the poor horses.
Speaking of horses, this guy's his name is JP Horsemanship on Instagram. He actually has a Morgan horse named Vic.
Oh, all right.
What does that sound like?
Yeah, Vic for victory.
No,
that was Victory at Little Bighorn. Custer's Vic was for victory.
There you go.
The horse Custer rode at Little Bighorn the day he died.
There you go. He says he has two questions. What do you attribute to the success of the Union cavalry that day? Pennington's artillery performance, repeating rifles, the fact that Stuart's cavalry was exhausted, all of the above, or something else? And number two, was it a literal foot chase to secure Brinkerhoff's Ridge by the New Jersey men under Gregg? Thank you, sir. P.S. I will follow up with Christian and provide him with Eric's email as you. I don't know what you're. That's.
Is that the end of the question, or are we?
Nobody is providing anybody with my email.
No, okay. That was that's regarding doing a cavalry show later with a horse guy. Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely think all of the above, and that's an easy answer, but we probably didn't give Pennington and Randall's artillery in our little discussion here. We probably did not give them enough credit.
You're right.
Custer, in his report, basically said the nation owed the victory of the Battle of Gettysburg to Lieutenant Pennington.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
That's a lot for one man to carry.
That's a lot to put on one man's shoulders.
Yeah.
A stretch.
But what?
Kind of a stretch.
But
well, let me ask you. I wanted to ask you. Okay, go ahead.
But what we didn't really touch on enough of was the fact that, by all accounts, the Union artillery on East Cavalry Field basically blew their Confederate counterparts off of Cress Ridge. And, besides just the dueling counter batteries, why that is important is because during some of these later stage Confederate charges, the Confederates have canister and shell and, to deal with. So we got to give Pennington his credit. But I think, not only all of the above, but, again, if I were going to tie a bow around it, let's give General Gregg the credit for more or less demanding that intersection be defended. And, both Custer and Gregg give them the command credit for just being tenacious defenders. There's
a story here about Pennington's battery. Battery M was in excellent form that day with the splendid salty oaths of a seasoned soldier. Lieutenant Pennington directed one of his sergeants to dismount a Confederate gun. "I will try," the man replied, adjusted the aim of his rifled piece, and fired. The projectile flew so true that it actually entered the muzzle of an enemy cannon and exploded, shattering and splintering the barrel into twisted scrap metal. "Well done," Pennington said matter-of-factly. "Now try that left gun." And then bang went the gun, and then he dismounted the gun. The shell exploded near the carriage of the gun and dismounted the barrel. So
supposedly. Yeah.
So now I was reading, what is this? Lee's Cavalryman. Is this any good?
Yeah.
Okay.
A Longacre book.
Yeah. I wanted to read the Confederate version of this fight, and that was Jackson's battery that Pennington was firing at that point?
Probably. And again, there's quite a bit of debate over which Confederate batteries are in action out there. In general,
Okay.
They've probably got about 12 to 14 guns, but there's some debate over which ones are which out there.
Because all they say in Lee's Cavalryman is that they were beaten up pretty bad and withdrawn, but there's no account of the shell going into the barrel.
No, but the account of the shell going into the barrel is a popular one, and you do see that. You do see that in a lot of accounts. I'm not only at East Cavalry Field, but we got those stories on other parts of the field, and who am I to question that? I would. And
actually, that story comes from what was that lieutenant's name? Oh, I can't remember, and I don't see it in here now. But the lieutenant that had no command, and he stopped at the Cadore barn and got drunk a bit, and then met Custer looking for the Michigan Brigade.
Yeah, but it's a good story. And hey, I'm sitting here looking at this though. While you're looking at this, if you don't have, I'm going to give a shout out to a friend. If you don't have Eric Wittenberg's Protecting the Flanks, which is the fight for Brinkerhoff Ridge at East Cavalry Field, that is far and away the best book on this topic.
Is it?
So for anybody, you guys or anybody out there who doesn't have it, and you want to get the Savas-Beatty reprint that they did a couple of years ago, because in true Savas-Beatty form, they just kind of put the book together nicely, and there's good maps and stuff like that. But if you're interested in East Cavalry Field, I would highly recommend Protecting the Flanks by Eric Wittenberg.
I will put that in the show notes so that people can link to it. Okay. Mike Lentz says, "Since I carpet bombed you with questions the last two times you asked for them, I will make this one brief. Number one, what role did the condition of... Okay, we kind of went on that, so I'm going to skip that one, Mike. And then number two, Custer gets all the attention. After all, he did save the Union by preventing Stuart from charging the rear of the Union lines, tongue planted firmly in cheek. But what were the contribution of David, Gregg, and John McIntosh to the fighting that occurred? Okay, so why do you think they get overshadowed? Do you think it might be because Custer died later on?
Yeah, I mean, I think the simplest answer is Custer's more famous. And he's more colorful. Gregg is not colorful. McIntosh is not colorful. Custer is famous, and as we said later, or as we said earlier, he gets killed in 1876. He gets killed later. But then, as we kind of go back and turn him into a national martyr. I mean, there was a time in this country when George Armstrong Custer was a hero. And obviously a hero of Custer's magnitude on the biggest stage of the war at Gettysburg, it's kind of an obvious kind of thing. But again, I want to be clear. I'm not aware of anywhere in Custer's writings where he said he saved the country at Gettysburg. And, it kind of becomes like the Joshua Chamberlain backlash. No, Chamberlain didn't save the good little round top.
Right.
It kind of becomes the same thing with a guy like Custer. People kind of assume there are these wild, outrageous claims out there. And in a lot of cases with Custer, that came from authors and historians after he was dead. And man, that ain't his fault.
And also, Gregg and McIntosh did not lead charges like that.
Well, and this kind of goes back to what we said at the beginning about some Custer critics just accusing him as being along for the ride kind of thing. Custer did exactly what a brigade commander should do. He got his butt out there in front of the guys, and if they were charging, he was right out there in front of them. You know,
Right.
Alfred Iverson, are you listening out there? Right? Custer was exactly where the brigade commander should have been, and he deserves all the credit in the world for doing that. You know, to your point, McIntosh was basically ordered to hold the Low Dutch Road with his regiments, and he did that.
Right.
Well, great, but which one are you going to talk about?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, of course.
Well, yeah, come on. So you got a colorful guy. You got a guy who's more famous. You got a guy leading charges. Yeah, I mean, you put all that in the blender, and that's why we talk about Custer. But before we go on, I want to add,
Okay.
who today does not give Greg credit? You know, in the world of Gettysburg historians,
Right.
it's kind of like all I hear about is, oh, George Meade doesn't get credit. Who is not
Who's
giving
not?
these guys credit today? I don't want you to talk about books that were on your shelf from 40 or 50 years ago. We can't do anything about that.
No.
Most serious Gettysburg students today give David Gregg all the credit he deserves for East Cavalry Field, and we're going to do that too.
Yeah.
If anything, today people don't give Custer enough credit because Custer's a dirty word today.
Yeah, and I think that people, it seems like there's a willingness to be a little more fair on the whole to all these people, except for maybe Custer.
And
now
Sickles.
it's like
Yeah,
and
right,
Sickles,
right,
yeah.
right, right.
Well, I don't know, Sickles. But like, I mean, Meade, you know, you got a lot of people that are defending Meade now,
Exactly.
and then you get like, you know, some books that come out that are a little critical of Meade, and everybody
everybody
like,
dump
they
piles.
dump on him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
They hate them.
Right.
And it's just like, well, okay, you don't need to get that crazy, but like, you know, everybody's got some points. Nobody's perfect.
It's kind of like Longstreet today.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah, that's another one,
most
yeah.
people today are pro Longstreet.
Yeah.
I mean, when I see, everybody blames Longstreet, I'm like, get the Lost Cause books off your shelf.
Right.
Nobody's doing that stuff anymore.
No.
So,
And he seemed to be the one that had half a brain in the whole operation.
yeah,
Like,
we
he
love
was
Longstreet.
like,
I know
don't
you had
think-
Corey on the show, who's a friend of ours. He's great.
Yeah, we love
so-
Corey.
Yeah, so anyways.
All right, so Bill Etzkorn, he says, has there ever been any interest in putting a secondary visitor center or museum out on East Cavalry Field? And with Custer's fame, surely someone had to think of it think it was worth the money and effort to do that.
Call it Custer National Field or something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It sounds like we might have something like that.
You know, that would be awesome, and I think Matt and I would be the first to contribute to that. But
Absolutely. I got like $20.
so I'm not aware of any efforts that have ever been made, you know, to even attempt something like that. But if I could, I'd like to give a shout out to the late Dan and Alice Hoffman, who have lived out at what is the Rummel Farm forever and ever. And, you know, in prior decades, when East Cavalry Field was often ignored, you know, within the park boundaries and things like that, before there were easements and that sort of thing, they really resisted attempts to develop and commercialize that area. And, you know, really we have them to thank for, you know, really I don't want to say pristine because it's kind of growing up, getting too wild looking out there again. But we really have the Hoffmans to thank for the bucolic nature of the battlefield out there. So they're both gone, but I want to give a shout out to
Who's at the Rummel Farm now? Like, are they?
So one of their daughters. lives
Okay,
there
it's
now
still in the
with
family.
Her family, yes,
Okay,
it's
good.
still in the family.
Good.
But Dan and Alice Hoffman. So
It
if
is
you got-
beautiful out there.
It is.
The way that farm is situated in that little swale there.
Which is why this has always been one of my favorite parts of the field.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful to get out there.
It's great to go out there
Yeah.
because nobody goes there. And don't you listeners start going now?
And don't so it's like when listeners say, "Oh, nobody goes to Culp's Hill." Oh, you know, come on,
Yeah,
really?
please. Everybody's at Culp's Hill now.
Everybody's at Culp's Hill.
Yeah.
Now. Compare Culp's Hill to East Cavalry Field, and then we'll talk.
Right. No, yeah. East Cavalry Field and also Benner's Hill are the two places I like to go when I want to go on the battlefield, but I want to get away from people because nobody goes there.
Yeah, and Benner's Hill takes 3 minutes. What do you do out there?
Yeah, nothing. You just sit and you look at the
just sit and
sunset
look.
go down over town or a storm come in.
You ponder your future and stuff like that.
You go, what am I doing with my life? Okay. Richard Snyder says,
Try
hello,
East
Matt.
Cavalry Field for that.
Hello, Matt. I hope all is well with you. Glad you're having Jim Hessler to discuss East Cavalry Field. I was lucky enough to attend the 2019 East Cavalry Field tour with Chris Army. My questions revolve around General Gregg. What was Pleasanton's opinion of him and vice versa? Also, what was the opinion of Custer and Kilpatrick? And what is Gregg's post-Gettysburg biography?
Interesting. Okay, so I can't pretend to have read everything that Greg, Pleasanton, Kilpatrick kind of wrote on the subject of each other. So I can't give the first part of that question an honest answer, but I'll say that, Greg seems to be kind of an interesting personality. He's definitely more, soft-spoken than a John Buford on the one extreme, and not as flamboyant as a George Armstrong Custer on the other extreme. And there seems to be some indications that, he was not happy with, some of these other guys. But at one point, Greg, as a brigade commander, had served under Pleasanton. And from what I've read, my understanding is basically Greg was not a big Pleasanton fan, but he kind of tolerated Pleasanton. Okay. And even to the extent of Pleasanton's successor in command of the Cavalry Corps, George Stoneman. Greg didn't really like Pleasanton, but he liked him better than Stoneman, kind of thing. And so,
did many people like Pleasanton? He doesn't sound like a likable guy.
Yeah, Custer liked Pleasanton, but you're right. But you're right. A lot of them, they don't seem to real. But that's probably.
But Pleasanton was kind of like a self-promoter, right?
Exactly.
So was Custer.
Exactly.
So that makes sense.
Exactly.
That they would like each other.
Only Custer was talented. And Pleasanton, well, we're not sure.
Only
right?
Custer was the best, and Pleasanton.
Well, so think about that, right? So, as Gettysburg enthusiasts, we always kind of crap on Pleasanton. But think about it. When that Cavalry Corps needed to be reorganized, and we want fresh young talent. Who had the eye for the talent?
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
Custer, Merritt, Wesley Merritt is, a pretty good officer. And, Farnsworth kind of gets killed before we can.
Yeah, we don't even know.
Kind of figure out what
Merritt goes off after the war fighting Indians as well.
Oh, yeah, Merritt has a long career.
Yeah.
Long career in the
But
Army.
he just doesn't get surrounded and killed.
Yeah. And again, he's not as colorful.
No.
But he lives longer.
Right.
So,
Yeah, slow and steady wins the race. Stephen Byers, he talks about the Spencer carbines. We mentioned that before. Okay. He wants to know, do some people overemphasize them or de-emphasize them? How do you feel? Like, do you think that history remembers the... Was it 5th that had them?
Yeah, the 5th.
The 5th Michigan having the carbines?
6th had them. No, I was going to say 6th had them a little bit, but it's
they had Burnside though, didn't they?
Right. The 6th was partially equipped, but it's the 5th that everyone remembers because they all have them. They're fully equipped.
So do you think that we exaggerate the importance of them, or?
I think we probably do a little bit in terms of the outcome of East Cavalry Field.
Yeah.
Because again, where the 5th was engaged was on that skirmish line that we talked about, kind of like the phase 1 fighting. And, so it makes for some great stories, probably makes for some great firepower. But in terms of the outcome of East Cavalry Field, East Cavalry Field is ultimately decided, I think, by those 2 charges.
Yeah,
so, I would say we probably give it a little more than it probably deserves in terms of the whole outcome.
So sometime this month, we hope to have Jim back on to go over to Patreon and talk about the Battle of the Little Bighorn. You may be saying, well, why? What does that have to do with Gettysburg? Custer was
Actually, I was asking the same question when you invited me.
When we do Patreon, there has to be the slightest little tie-in to Gettysburg. Okay. That's it.
Right.
Custer, who is it? Now, let me ask you this. Miles Keogh was there. Was he on Buford's staff here?
Yes, he was.
He was. So he was also here.
Yeah, so we've got a handful of guys with Gettysburg and Little Bighorn connections.
Perfect. So there it is.
There's your tie-in.
So easy.
And I can tell Eric, the producer, is going to be thrilled to do another Custer team episode.
Absolutely ecstatic to talk about the Cavalry again.
And he loves talking about this one because they get wiped out.
I'm so happy to be here.
It's the only time that anyone has ever seen a dead cavalryman was at the Little Bighorn.
Come on now. There's been a couple more. Yeah. Well, speaking of fun, I had fun talking with you, Jim Hessler. Thanks for coming on. Jim is, of course, the licensed battlefield guide, co-host of the Battle of Gettysburg podcast, and author of many such books like Sickles at Gettysburg, Gettysburg Speech Orchard, and Pickett's Charge at Gettysburg. Thank you all for listening. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And we keep mentioning YouTube, but we haven't done anything really on YouTube yet, but we will soon. We're getting there. We just have to make a couple of adjustments on our studio computer, and then things will change. And don't forget to turn the notifications on. Also, patreon.com/addressing Gettysburg. You want to support the show, become a patron, and you can ask questions on these Ask a Guides. Jim, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. Thanks again for the invite.
You're welcome.
Look forward to it again.
Don't forget to take some cookies. Katie's Delicious Cookies from Katie's Bakery, katiesbakery.com. It's not a real address yet, so forget I said that. I just wanted to get practice in. Veronica, thank you for coming by. Waylon, thank you for coming by. Eric, thank you as always. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. Until next time, have a good one. All right, we are footloose and fancy free.
All right, so how
Our hearts so stout have got us fame, forsooth 'tis known from whence we came. Wherever we go, they dread the name of Gary Owen in glory. Instead of spa or drink down ale and hail a reckoning on the nail, no man forget shall go to jail from Gary Owen in glory. Instead of spa or drink down ale